Hey there gamers, here we have it. I've finally received the MSI Claw. I went for the Intel Core Ultra 7 and the 1TB SSD, which I believe is the top of the range model. And in summary, I'm slightly disappointed. I kind of had some buyer's remorse the second I pre-ordered this. And then I thought, no, let's have a little faith that it's just going to be a bad launch, that we'll get some driver and BIOS updates that will totally fix all the issues we're going to see, and everything will be tickety-boo, and I'll have another great little device to swap between alongside all my other ones. And then I kind of flip-flopped a bit. It was like an emotional roller coaster where I'd watch or read something that said, oh, you know what, it's like the performance in this is absolutely terrible. And then I read something else where someone's going, well, I messed about turning off some of the cores and the performance is pretty decent now. And then I kind of watched the Forks' video and, you know, I'm right at the bottom of the roller coaster again. The device does not have the power that it should have. The benchmarks, let's get onto the benchmark then. I'll show you kind of where I am with that. So what I did, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I ran it on all the devices I owned. So Steam Deck, ROG Ally, MSI Claw, and Legion Go. I put the same resolution, so 720p on all of them, and I used the medium preset. So I'll just show you here, display and graphics. So you can see VSync was turned off. I had the same, the same settings, no AMD Fidelity FXS CAS, and medium graphics preset on them all. And then I would run it. I'd set each of the devices to be as close to 15 watt TDP as they could be. I know that's not exactly scientific, especially after watching the Forks' video, but you know, we're in the same sort of ballpark. And then I ran the benchmark for each of them. So to start with, I ran it on the Steam Deck, and we were seeing 15 watts, averaged 44 frames per second. And then I ran it on the MSI Claw, and was able to get an average frames per second of 44 frames per second, so exactly the same as the Steam Deck at 15 watts. And I ran it again when it was, I unplugged it, ran it again, and got 45 frames per second. I think that was just a minor variance, so it's pretty much Steam Deck performance at 15 watts for this game. So the next thing I did was I ran performance mode on the MSI Claw. So that's 35 watts. I think it's the top performance TDP setting. And it came back with 52 frames per second. So for all that extra power getting pushed through the CPU, it only yielded an extra 7 frames per second, which is terrible. You know, there's no other way of putting it. So I moved on to see what my ROG Ally would do, and at 15 watts, 720p, the ROG Ally was at 57 frames per second. So it beat this device at its maximum setting at 15 watts. There is an issue with my Ally at the moment, so I'm not sure how trustworthy that benchmark was. I think I've stuffed up my drivers somehow, because while it was doing the benchmark, it had high frames per second, but was so far from smooth it was ridiculous. It looked terrible. So I might discount that from the benchmarks. So then finally I ran the benchmark on my Legion Go, and at 15 watts it came back at 46 frames per second. So a 2 frames per second, kind of 2 to 3 frames per second difference. I then ran the Legion Go at 30 watts TDP, and it came back at 68 frames per second. So a massive increase over the Claw's 52. So very, very disappointing. I'm hoping that BIOS updates and driver updates might claw, if you excuse the pun, claw back some of that performance. I'm an eternal optimist, so, you know, but it is pushing my patience a little bit. So yes, let's do a benchmark because it looks beautiful on this device. It's silky smooth when you've got the power going through, and the only thing that would make it better if it was doing significantly more frames per second. Now I hate being totally negative, and there's one thing this device is truly outstanding for, and that is the sound. The sound on this device is even better than the ROG Ally's, and that was a fantastic sound, in my opinion. And there's also this thing going on with the sound that when you're holding the device, the bass sort of comes through as almost like a really subtle haptic feedback. And I'm not a fan of haptic feedbacks. I think one of the worst things ever is the haptic feedback on the Legion Go. But I'm really liking this subtle sort of vibration you get of the sound through the device. So there we are, I found something positive to say. Yeah, so there we are. We actually got a 54 frames per second on that run. Bear in mind, this is the maximum power that this device can run at. So, very disappointing. If this device existed in a vacuum, so say none of the other devices existed, you'd probably be really happy with the gameplay. But when you compare it to any of the other three, I don't see it matching the value of any of them at the moment. Very sad to say. I had high hopes of the Ultra 7, but it's just been a disappointment so far. Thank you for watching. Sorry it couldn't have been better news, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.